Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Morse. I'm a senior meteorology student here at Penn State. The title of my research was Evaluating the Usefulness and Response to Graphical Information Used to Communicate Uncertainty-Driven and Probabilistic Winter Weather Forecasts. This research project started last summer with my NOAA Hollings Scholarship and has continued over the past year in my final year as an undergraduate student at Penn State. So I've been focused on identifying the best messaging strategies for winter storms and some of the best practices that I've developed can be adopted by National Weather Service offices across the country, as well as others in the weather enterprise, such as broadcast meteorologists, in order to communicate the threat of an upcoming winter storm in the best way possible. Now, I looked at all three phases of winter weather messaging before an upcoming winter storm: long-range winter weather messaging, days 4 through 7, when the threat of a winter storm is just entering the forecast; days 2 to 3 before a winter storm, when you can start to pin down where the area of greatest impacts, where the highest snowfall totals will be; and then days 1 to 2 before a storm, when you can start to put out specific numbers, snowfall totals, and you can release snow maps at this lead time. And at all three of these parts of the winter weather messaging sequence, I was focused on seeing how we can best incorporate uncertainty-driven as well as probabilistic information into these graphics in a way that's easy for users to interpret, and in a way that this type of information can be used for these people's decision-making processes. The overall goal of this project is to improve winter weather messaging as a whole and to achieve more consistency across the weather enterprise in the way that winter weather forecasts are communicated, specifically in the way that graphics are used. So the way I went about doing this was I gathered hundreds of graphics that National Weather Service offices posted on Twitter and Facebook over the past couple of winter seasons to communicate upcoming winter storms. I organized all these graphics and identified the key differences among them. I used social media analytics to study specific winter storms. Then I received feedback through surveys as well as through focus groups. We conducted three separate surveys, one of which surveyed the United States public, which generated over 800 responses. Another survey was done of meteorologists who work at National Weather Service offices, and another survey was done of non-meteorologists who work at these National Weather Service offices, such as technicians. So long-range winter weather messaging, the first part of that winter weather messaging sequence, days 4 through 7 before an upcoming winter storm, I identified 4 common graphic types that are used by National Weather Service offices at this lead time. One of which is to circle an area on a map for snowfall potential. Another is to use the track of the storm to communicate the timing and the impact area. Another common graphic type is a list of dates or a timeline with the potential for snow highlighted. And then a more text-based graphic type is listing out what is known, what is not, what is still uncertain, and things that the user can do to prepare for the upcoming snowstorm. I found that simplistic map-based graphics were the preferred option at this lead time, with 38% of meteorologists and 41% of non-meteorologists that work at National Weather Service offices preferring the circled area for snowfall potential graphic type. And then when I surveyed the general public, I found that 38% preferred the graphic that uses the track of the storm to communicate the timing or the impact area, and another 26% preferred the graphic type with the circling an area on a map for snowfall potential. So these results support the statement that using map-based graphics is the best way to communicate an upcoming storm threat in the long range. Using brief text-based statements about uncertainty or some timing information, specifically when the greatest impacts will be from the storm, was also found to be important on graphics at this lead time. And recently, the National Weather Service and State College has developed a probability of plowable snowfall graphic that uses probabilistic information to communicate where the greatest threat is of accumulating a couple of inches of snow from an upcoming snowstorm, and it uses a yellow, orange, red color scheme and uses that probabilistic information like I was mentioning. And these types of graphics were found to be easy to interpret as well as helpful for users at this lead time. So key takeaway from long-range winter weather graphics: they need to be kept simple, and using map-based visuals were the preferred option among people that we surveyed and got feedback from in this research project. Now focusing days 2 to 3 before a winter storm, when what's called risk probability graphics are used by some National Weather Service offices. And these graphics communicate the probability of exceeding a certain amount of snowfall, such as the probability of at least 6 inches of snow falling across the forecast area. The purpose of these graphics, they're used when there's still too much uncertainty for snow maps to be released. They communicate the spatial coverage and the likelihood of a winter storm. When users see these graphics, they should start to prepare for the storm. And these graphics do a good job of conveying the uncertainty in the forecast and encouraging the users to check back for further forecast updates. But right now, there's a lot of different color schemes that are used for these graphics, depending on the National Weather Service office that is displaying this information in graphic form. And here are some of those different color schemes that are used. You can see a wide variety of different options that are being used right now across the National Weather Service. Some of these options plot the actual probability percentages of exceeding that snowfall amount that's listed on the graphic at each location. Others do not do that and just include some of those probability percentages in the legend of the graphics. What we found from the research is that there is a preference towards the blue gradient color scheme with those percentages on the map at each location. You can see these results from our survey of the public, showing that 30% of respondents preferred the blue gradient color scheme with those percentages plotted at each location, saying that it was the easiest to interpret and the best communicator of uncertainty information. But overall, using the probability percentages on the graphic, they need to be included somewhere on the graphic, whether that be at each location with the blue gradient color scheme or at least in the legend as shown by this yellow, orange, red color scheme example. And simple additional information adding to these graphics was also found to be important, such as timing or what is known about the upcoming winter storm. So these risk probability graphics are useful at this lead time, but a more standardized graphic style needs to be adopted to improve the consistency, and these blue gradient color scheme is a viable option for doing so. In terms of communicating uncertainty on snow maps days 1 to 2 before an upcoming winter storm, what some National Weather Service offices have done is to circle an area of greatest uncertainty, and that's done when there's a very sharp gradient in snowfall amounts or lots of uncertainty still with the forecast, possibly because forecast models are not agreeing on snowfall forecasted amounts. This practice was liked by all and allows users to be more prepared for an upcoming snowstorm, as the majority of non-meteorologists that work at Weather Service offices and the public said that they would check back for forecast updates to see if anything has changed if they live in this circled area, as well as many of them saying that they would prepare for higher snowfall amounts in case the forecast changes. And a brief description of why this uncertainty exists or where that band of heaviest snow might shift was also shown to be preferred. So circling areas of uncertainty on a snow map was liked by all and should be used by more people across the weather enterprise. A summary of all of our key takeaways: with long-range graphics, they need to be kept simple, but using map visuals was the preferred option. With risk probability graphics, those probability percentages need to be included on the map, and a more standardized graphic style needs to be adopted, possibly this blue gradient color scheme. Then with snow maps, using a circled area is liked by all to emphasize areas of greatest uncertainty and should be used by more across the weather enterprise. That's all I've got for my research presentation. Thanks for listening.